Recording started
Absolutely.
and stream has started. Hello, hello. Welcome to the Statecraft Series, episode 12. Delta's not going to be here with us because he has a schedule conflict. So it's just going to be today with me and McGuire, and we agree on most of everything. So we're just kind of talking about everything, hence the title. Um, McGuire, we were talking about infrastructure a little bit ago, and while we agree on infrastructure for the most part, um, we just kind of it's just we're mostly discussing ideas today. Uh,
Yeah, absolutely. I think I don't know. So I think you mentioned walkability. How far do you think that walkability, public transport, that sort of thing, how far do you think that should be encouraged in urban planning?
I think it should be the sole number one priority in urban planning. I think uh, most, if not all, roads in America should, like within towns, of course, should be
Mhm.
switched over and converted to allow for better biking, walkability, better public transport, etc. As much as we can feasibly do that.
Sure. So I think I mentioned this one of the challenges that America uniquely poses with regards to urban planning is the massive amount of sprawl. I mean,
Mhm.
it sounded like we kind of agree on this. I think in terms of inhabited landmass, there's probably some actual data on this somewhere, but I would probably say, just talking out of my ass right now, America is probably the largest country on Earth in terms of large sprawl. I mean, it's a large country, no doubt, third largest, I believe, right? In terms of sheer land
Third,
mass,
fourth,
and then
fifth, something like that. Yeah.
yeah, right around there. And given the climate of the Americas, we happen to be in such a position where we're able to spread out so much. Um, so I think that poses some interesting challenges towards this idea of walkability and so forth, because there's so much space to cover. So I think you mentioned zoning. How do you think zoning should be adjusted to accommodate this?
Oh, well, for starters, within my town, we have segregated zoning. So, in like the industry, like zone is different from the commercial, which is different from the residential. I think for sure we should
Mhm.
have at least a mixed zoning in terms of residential and commercial. Um, we should allow those to be mixed. So, like you would have like the normal, like you would have your corner shop, corner coffee shop. You could have like this like be a little bit of residential, and then you have like a thing behind it or next to it of a commercial or something like that. Uh, this mixed zoning allows for more walkability, which can result in better health, more people biking to work, or even just walking to work. You live next to where you work. I think these are good things to strive towards uh, within like a more like local level.
Okay, absolutely. I think I think that's reasonable. Zoning is a frequent hot button topic with libertarians. I think because it puts a lot of pressure on people in terms of starting businesses and moving ahead with commercial ventures and so forth. Because obviously, as soon as you start putting regulations on land use on people, um, you're limiting what they can do. Do you think that zoning, as like a general idea, is a good one?
Um, some limited zoning is good because, excuse me, you don't want
Mhm.
your industry, like your main polluters, next to where you live. So some segregation is good, but when it comes to commercial and residential, we should try to integrate those as much as possible. And I would even say uh, have less yard space, less like land utilization overall, and allow for um, higher residential, so like two-story buildings within small towns instead of what we currently do, which is we regulate so much within the housing market that we just can't. We don't allow for this stuff to happen.
I see. Um, I think that makes sense. That I generally support that. I think limited is definitely the way to go. Um, especially once you start to get into those environmental concerns. I mean, that's a big issue. And I think it's something that goes over a lot of people's heads. You look at things like, wastewater treatment plants, for example. I mean, they're the biggest picture of, legalized polluters, right? One of the big methods that they use in, making wastewater from these treatment plants safe is literally just, dilution, right? The idea is that by the time the water reaches anybody who would be impacted by it, um, it's been in such a large body of water that, concentrations have decreased such that it's, safe to be around. I think that touches on one of these bigger issues with zoning. Um, it's a massive public health concern. I mean, um, there's a lot of safety issues that go into it. Um,
This goes
I
in
don't know where I'm going with
well,
this. I
so
mean,
like this goes into what we talked about last time in terms of infrastructure last Monday. When we were saying about
mhm.
land and how we utilize it, that like groundwater, we don't want groundwater to be polluted. And when it comes to things like going downstream, you don't want the person upstream polluting the water and ruining it for everyone downstream. So that's making the stream more of a public good. So if someone pollutes it, then everyone can have some sort of repercussion to fight it, to fight against that polluter.
Yeah, okay, absolutely. I kind of spaced on that conversation. So now that you bring that up, I think a big thing that we were talking about was federal bureaucracy and where do you kind of draw the line on that? And I know Delta would probably have some much more spicy opinions on this, but given drinking water or even just open navigable waters, right? And how pervasive they are, if that makes sense, right? They
Yeah,
impact such a wide area, so many
look at
people.
the
Do you
Mississippi,
think that's
right?
something that should?
The Mississippi,
Mhm.
which is
No,
it's
absolutely.
it's good for groundwater, like it's good for water treatment and for everyone to get water, but also at the same time, it's used as mass shipping as well.
Exactly. Yeah, for sure. So I think with that in mind, do you think that regulating that and overseeing that, maybe not necessarily in terms of zoning, but more so like, just making sure polluters on the waterfront and so forth are being responsible. Do you think that should be a federal concern or should that be something relegated to the states?
So, like we talked about last time, I think when it comes to like the EPA, what we should do
Hmm.
is have almost like a minute, like a look at how we run certain industries and jobs. You have like the CEO, which could be the EPA, and then you have it like to regional. So it could be just like the South versus like the Northeast, whatever, right? Those regional areas, and then you
Hmm.
have everything under like then you slowly get smaller and smaller to the slowest possible denominator. I think that should be how we run for most part. The federal government is have like the main CEO, and then slowly like you lower like less control and less control overall until you get to lowest possible denominator.
Okay, interesting. I think so. This was something I wanted to bring up the other day. I think that there is cause for federal oversight and direct federal involvement. So like with this water situation right here, um, you enter into issues with regulating these resources because they're not necessarily one person's object, right? And I think this is one of the benefits to having large nations. I know Delta is like a big advocate for, well, if somebody wants to
Yeah.
be a tiny nation state, they should be a tiny nation state. But I think one of the benefits of these larger nations and larger organizations is that um you can regulate these massive resources that impact so many people, and you can do so with unified policy. So with the water, for example, um it would be difficult to enforce a cohesive, public health standard if you had 50 different standards that all impact the same waterway, right? I
Hmm.
think this starts to touch on maybe a cause for federal oversight. So then I think the question becomes how much, and I think I agree with you that it should be delegated down to some degree, but I do see an importance in still giving the federal government teeth in that regard too. I don't know if you agree on that.
Well, as a Georges type person, I do think that land should be publicly owned. So whether
Hmm.
it be like for how we run things traditionally in the U.S., it's usually the government. At least the government and the public are roughly the same thing. Um, because of how
Hmm.
our democratic process normally functions, the people are the government. In which case, then the government, usually the federal government, decides roughly what happens with land, which was also why we have federal lands for like reserves or for test sites, army bases, etc. These are all things that we use. They all belong to the public, to us.
Hmm. Okay, sure. So then, I think where does the federal system fit into that in your mind then?
Um, what do you mean by that? Like,
So if land is like a public resource,
yeah.
and you're saying that the government is an extension of or the government is the people, right?
Mhm.
Um, where do you draw the line between maybe a federal government holding or something that the federal government has direct power over and something that the state government has direct power over?
Sure. So, things like like for national concern reasons, like you don't want the army base to be fully accessible to the public. So, for
Sure, sure, sure.
obvious reasons, for security reasons, etc. Right? Like you don't want Area 51 or
Yep.
any other army base, army, navy, etc., to be fully accessible to everybody. So stuff like that, when it comes to national security, I think that does cause a concern for uh, pure federal and not necessarily. It still belongs to the public because as we do fund it with our public funds, our public money, it may not be fully accessible though. So that would be considered fully just
Mhm.
federal land versus private land. Well, private under my system with big air quotes because it is still
Yeah.
in a sense public, but you're renting it out for private utilization. So the land that's allowed for private usage would be to the public. It would be for us to use collectively.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. Um, yeah, I don't. Your George's philosophy is a lot more developed than mine, so I don't really
Yeah.
have any more to add to that. But
Yeah.
okay.
Uh,
Like you said earlier, this is kind of just a conversation. I'm probing your beliefs
sure.
because they're interesting and
Yeah.
obviously a lot more mature
And
than maybe
I got a little
my
bit of something in
opinions
my
on certain
system
things.
too, so it'll it'll get
There
some
we go.
things out.
Yeah, right, right. Ever think of a man in a romantic capacity, or are
Absolutely.
we not to that point yet?
Ryan Reynolds.
Oh, there we go.
Absolutely.
Okay. Oh, yep, yep.
Yeah.
Well, that's
That's a
just a
given.
universal experience, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
You didn't even have to confirm that. Yeah.
All right.
Um.
Hugh
Interesting.
Jackman.
Okay.
I like Hugh Jackman. I think he's hot. He's cool.
Yeah. Yeah. I think he's tops of a lot of guys' lists too. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, you got anything else for me?
No, I'm just kind of going off the seat of my pants here.
Yeah.
Um. No, I think infrastructure is a really interesting issue, especially because it's such a high cost item too. I don't think that this really sets in for a lot of people, but I mean the cost of the raw materials alone for even an asphalt road is really immense. I mean,
Mhm.
I don't have the numbers right immediately on hand, but speaking from memory, I had a conversation about this a little while back. I believe it's something like that. The average mile of two-lane roadway in the U.S. costs something like $2.5 million. Um,
Yeah. Have you
because
seen
it really is in a.
Sorry,
Oh, go
sorry.
ahead.
Sorry. No, continue.
Oh, I just want to say I think it's such an immense cost, both in terms of materials, but then manpower, equipment, all of that goes into these roadways, and it's something that I think, especially when you're talking to libertarians, escapes a lot of people's minds. Just the sheer scale of what infrastructure demands. Um, and it's so important, right? I mean, everything needs roadways to travel on. It's a given for modern society. So it's a really interesting conversation to have
Hmm.
with especially libertarians because there's such a push to privatize these things. But I think it starts to enter the realm of being infeasible. Um, but then of course with public transit and so forth, there's a lot of conversations to be had about appropriate usage of money too. So,
Yeah.
but all that being said, what did you want to say there?
Well, to add to public transit real quick, it's always a net negative in terms of income. The
Mhm.
amount you invest into
Oh,
public
absolutely.
transit will always be less than what you get out of it, the amount you invest will be more than what you get out of it every time. Uh, which is why it'll never
Mhm.
be privatized. But I was asking you, have you seen the roads? I think it's in Dallas. At least it's in a major city in Texas. Like
Mhm.
what they've done with the highways. It's like I think they expanded it to like a 12-lane highway.
Yeah, I've seen those pictures. It enters the realm of absurdity very
Yeah.
very quickly. Um,
And there's been
I think
talks to expand it
it's
too. They've been wanting to expand it even more.
yeah, it's kind of insane. It's really a failure of traffic control. I mean, okay, so it's a lot more complicated of an issue than it seems at first glance. There's a lot of calculations and
Hmm.
planning and so on by people with literally centuries of experience with civil engineering that goes into this. But I think it comes down to really a systemic failure of adequate traffic planning up to that
Well,
point. Um,
I think
oh, go ahead.
the problem I've watched several stuff on this, and I'm not an expert, but from what I've seen, it kind of makes sense. So the more lanes you add, it actually increases the
Hmm.
amount of traffic that would have already been there because those other people who were not driving were using things like the public transport systems or walking or doing whatever. But now that there's extra lanes, now they're more inclined to not use those public systems and rather to drive themselves, thus using those extra
Hmm.
lanes because they think it's going to be faster. Which then, if one person thinks that, that's not really a cause for concern. But when it comes to a city, a whole city, especially a big city like Dallas, where everyone thinks that,
Hmm.
then you see actually worse traffic overall than you did before, which then means that they
Hmm.
want to expand it even more because the traffic, and it's a feedback loop where the more they add, the more traffic there is, so they keep adding more, the more traffic there is, and it's a terrible system, which is why we need to get rid of that kind of system and even reduce the amount of lanes, because actually places that have reduced the amount of lanes that they've had have actually seen less traffic and have had better like car accessibility. So I think we should definitely focus on reducing highways, not completely get rid of them because we need them in how big the U.S. is at least. Maybe not. You won't need them in like Netherlands, Belgium, but in the U.S. definitely. So not getting rid of them, but reducing them and allowing for better public transport.
Yeah, exactly. I think that touches on a lot of it. It's really a big consequence of having these interstates running through inner cities. It's a consequence of using these this kind of arterial roadways through cities. Um, an interstate, it's in the name. It should be for long distance, interstate travel. Um, the issue with Dallas and Fort Worth and all of these major traffic hotspots is that they're kind of adapting. Adapting is maybe the wrong word, but they're shoehorning these interstates into filling the role of not even public transit. They're using them to fill the role of city boulevards and
Mm-hmm.
actual municipal roadways. Public transit plays a big role in that, but I think that the issue would be so much better too if Dallas put a lot more emphasis on 70 years ago. Obviously, it's a done deal now. If 70 years ago they put a lot more emphasis on their own municipal internal roadways rather than relying on interstates for cross city transit, that's a big issue. Um, and so it's a failure of urban planning, and it creates a um, big problem nowadays because how do you solve this, right? You can't start tearing out these lanes because this is the main arterial system for your city. And you can't
Well,
start building new roadways to take over demand until you start tearing out those lanes. Obviously, mass transit's really the big solution to that because
well,
you can start integrating buses and taxis and so forth in existing roads. Go ahead.
well, actually, the best thing to do is probably to start tearing out the roads, because then as you tear them out, then people will be less likely to use those roads and use those public transport systems, in which then you can invest more in those public transport And then as you slowly tear apart those roads and invest that used to be road fund into a public transport fund, then you'll see more people using public transport instead of roads, and then actually clearer roads, better traffic, which I think the best thing to do is to start tearing up the roads. So
Sure, but the big issue with that is that these departments of transportation are accountable to their constituents, right? Um, and so you'll never get that as an actual implemented policy, just because nobody's going to support a Secretary of Transportation that is actively attacking your roadways, as logical it might seem.
mhm.
Or as logical as it might be to get rid of those roadways, you're not going to get public support for
Yeah.
those measures until there's an adequate solution outside of the existing roadways that people are willing to adopt. So I think that starts to touch on, maybe investing on buses and pushing buses more before you start to remove those lanes. So then demand starts to shrink before you go ahead and pull the rug out on things.
Well,
It's just really challenging, and it's to go back to last week, I guess it's starting to touch on one of the big issues with democracy. You're accountable to the people, whether or not what the people demand is the best for the people, right?
I think the problem is so each amount of like the amount of funds you get, let's say it's like $1 billion or whatever, or even just 1 million. You don't have $1 million to then invest in infrastructure. You only have a portion of that million to invest. So maybe it might be like 10-15%. And if you're spending like 10% or like the majority of at least that percent on just the roadway, then you don't have enough to fund the public infrastructure needed to start getting rid of those road funds. And then you end up losing more of those public funds to then build more roads. You need to first start decreasing those road funds by tearing up the roads to then allow to then be able to allocate more of those road funds into public infrastructure and those public means of transportation.
Possibly. I think I maybe one of the bigger things here, I think, might be injecting more capital into infrastructure, which is obviously is happening today. But injecting more capital into infrastructure than is currently going in, because even as it is right now, there's not enough money to support even essential road networks, let alone these extra superfluous road networks and mass transit on top of that. So there has to be more support for supporting infrastructure in general, whether it is these new sustainable measures or not.
Yeah.
I think with Dallas, especially, or with these Texas networks especially, I do think that money can. Granted, this is again off the top of my head, but they have a lot more liberty to divert funding because they're in such a neutral climate in terms of weather and snow clearing and road maintenance concerns. Um, so there doesn't necessarily have to be as much injection into supporting the roads as there might have to be north of Texas. So there is the ability to start diverting those funds before closing the lanes, I think.
Well,
Just because they don't require as much capital.
so
Um,
what we need is
Go ahead.
what we need is honestly a different culture on drivability. So like removing laws to like certain zoning laws to allow for that mixed zoning that we both champion,
Mhm.
to having more walkability, more public transport options, and easier access to that public transport so people don't have to own a car to live, to survive. I don't, for true libertarianism, it's solely relying on yourself and not necessarily others. And for that, you shouldn't have to rely on a public company or a private company to supply you a car to even live.
Maybe, but I think that this starts to get into the unique challenges with the U.S. in terms of how spread out it is. Um, even with ideal super dense cities, which is never going to happen, it's economically impossible, right? As you start to build up cities, real estate starts to get more and more expensive, so people are going to go where prices are lower, which is outside of cities. So you're always going to get sprawl as long as there's land availability, and the U.S. will never not have land availability. It's just it's the geography of the United States. This isn't an issue in Europe or Asia where things are a lot more dense. But in the U.S., right, there's just so much space that it's an intrinsic,
Well,
uh, state of affairs. So as long as you have that sprawl, there's always going to be a push for vehicles because people are always going to exist outside of the reach of mass transit. It's not going to ever be possible to facilitate mass transit that can adequately service everybody's needs, right?
so
This goes not just for rural areas, but also as you start to get on the cusps of cities. Anyways, go ahead.
so instead of looking at like a single European country, let's look at the entirety of Europe. At least, like, if you
Hmm.
look at the Netherlands specifically, most people don't own a car. They don't necessarily have a want or
Sure.
a need to go to Germany, which or go to France or any of these places. Literally, like their next door neighbors, Belgium, right? They don't have a need. They may have a
Hmm.
want to do that, in which case they will invest in a car. But most people don't leave like their area they live in. They don't leave, uh, and this includes people in the U.S. So people don't necessarily have a want for a car, but they have a need for a car because they don't have this easy accessibility of walking, biking, any of this infrastructure, so that they're forced to buy a car to live, even though they may not want to. There's not good public infrastructure. There's not good walkability. There's not good bikeability. We since I don't know the 70s, if not before, when it was probably what the 40s 30s when cars started like really taking
Hmm.
off in the public, because they started really in the military and whatever, but when they started
Hmm.
taking off, then you saw this uh reliance on cars because cities started going towards cars because they were getting this extra funding and this lobbying effort from car manufacturers to then invest in more car dependency, which is why we see this problem now. But most people don't leave the area that like the around the area they live in. If someone like I don't know, somewhere I used to live, Dritter, Texas, or sorry, Dritter, Louisiana,
Hmm.
those people don't leave Dritter, Louisiana. They don't have a need to, and they don't really have a want to most of the time. So I think the problem is that we have this extra reliance on cars as unnecessary when we could be investing in the infrastructure we need so that people can just walk and bike, better health. This is stuff that we need to invest in, and we need to start taking funds away from roads and even tearing up roads so that we can invest these extra funds going towards those roads into that public infrastructure.
Sure. I don't have an issue with investment in transit and walkability and
Yeah.
bikeability and so forth in inner city areas, but I don't see cars as being a issue that will ever go away in mass. Again, it's the unique geographic situation of the United States. Most commuting obviously does happen within a singular city where that can perhaps be replaced by mass transit, but people have family just by the virtue of the size of the United States. They
Yeah.
have recreational interests, they have commercial interests that go outside of the scope of cities,
Yeah. I mean, look at
over a very
so
wide area.
no, like look at the UK, right?
Mhm.
Even though they're not big,
Sure.
they're big enough that they do have some reliance on cars if they do have family that's like a couple hours away within that car ride. So like um but like there will be some necessity for cars in terms of visiting maybe family if they are states away, but for the most part they are unnecessary if you have the necessary public infrastructure to travel locally, which most people use their cars to travel locally. With most people don't need their cars if they have that necessary public and local transport.
I still see the need existing. People will still invest. I think, speaking of the UK, car ownership is still a large thing there. Um, I think that the UK gets it right though in that they have a mix between road systems and inner village, inner community mass transit. I think that's really the medium to exist in. Cars are always going to be a need in the United States, though it's never going to be eliminated. It's more
Sure.
so about
it's
giving alternatives for short range.
yeah, I'm not for eliminating cars altogether. There is a necessity for vehicular transport, for that personal private
Hmm.
transport. There is a need for that. I'm saying, though, well, at least there's
Hmm.
a want, not necessarily a need, but rather a want. I want to get rid of the need for it, but still allow the want for it. So, like, you don't need to necessarily visit your family if you're in New York, if you need to visit family down in like Florida or Texas. That's not a need, that's more of a want, because you could fly over there. You don't need a car. You could fly over there, you could taxi, or even go from the airport from New York down to Texas and then take a train or take a taxi or whatever to the place you need to go, or around the place you need to go. And then it's like there's a way to get it to where you don't need to rely on cars, even in the US where we are so big. Um, but trying to eliminate that need as much as possible should be a like a thing to strive for, to champion.
Perhaps this is more a municipal thing. I think it's perhaps something to strive for, but I don't see it ever being something you can reach. I mean, to get a sense for scale here, right? You have a large amount of car dependence in the UK, um, and in terms of size, right? In terms of land mass, it's about 93 thousand square miles. Um, Compare that to Minnesota, right? Just a singular state, which isn't even a particularly large state, all things considered, which is 79,000 square miles. I mean, the difference is night and day. Um, the United States is just so vast. And so you're never going to be able to meet, because again, it's an issue of economics, really. At the end of the day, you're never going to be able to economically force um, all all services, all goods, all needs that people want, that need to be met, into a singular geographic area, or into a confined geographic area rather. Um, when there's so much cheap land that's available outside of, a 15-minute walking radius, right? This is again why the urban sprawl happens, because there's no reason for people to pay high real estate prices and, massive costs for housing developments and so forth, when you can achieve a reasonable compromise in, a commute that people can tolerate, and cheap land that's, 20 miles away. I think so. This is always going to be an issue. I think it's a good thing to try to push cities to move towards these walkable features inside of the cities themselves, but it's roads should continue to be a thing, and it has to. We have to be realistic about the fact that the need for cars in such a vast country is never going to disappear. It's always
Yeah,
going to remain.
sure.
Um,
And I never said to get rid of cars altogether, but we should try to reduce their
no, sure.
requirement to survive as much as possible.
Sure, I think again, it's only something I see sustainable in certain urban areas where you can
Well,
try to push these policies where there's the.
even in suburban areas, these areas that are right outside the urban areas. Like if you look at the Netherlands, they do have urban areas, but they also have like
Mhm.
really dense suburbs that are mixed zones, and they function really well. If you see pictures of the Netherlands, you see bikes everywhere. You see people riding bikes, or even
Mhm.
just massive areas of just like 100, 200 bikes in like a dedicated area. Like you couldn't fit that many cars in such a small area, but you can fit like an infinite number of bikes within like a parking lot in the
Mhm.
US. And the parking lot requirements in the US are absurd. Like you need like I'm sure you've seen some of the regulations in terms of parking lot size, right? Especially in
Mhm.
Texas, it's absolutely fucking insane.
No, absolutely. I think, but this still loops back to the economic issue. Suburbs ultimately crop up, at least, modern land developments, because people want housing, and they want affordable housing that you don't
Well,
necessarily get in cities, right?
yeah, so they want
So they spread out to cheaper.
yeah, so people in
Oh, go
suburbs
ahead.
want a specific amount of land, like a certain amount of acreage. It's less than 1 acre,
Hmm.
but like let's say 0.25 acres to themselves with a front and backyard, a fence, white picket fence. It's like that's the idea of the American dream, right? Um, this is all based around suburbs, and then you had people living in, like, you normally the idea was to have the industry and the commercial in the urban areas, and then have the residential in the suburbs. So everyone uses not mass transport, but rather highways and freeways and whatever else. I don't even know the difference between all the different kinds of ways there are. But people use these different road networks to travel into this urban area for the commercial, for the industrial, and then go back to the suburbs where there's home. I want to try to reduce that and try to get rid of that as much as possible by even more so urbanizing the suburbs, making them denser and all that junk. Make the land utilization more efficient.
So I think, but the issue with this, right, is that I think the suburbs ultimately come down to an affordability issue. That's why they exist. I mean, obviously there's homes and land and all that. That's
Well,
the cookie
the
tin
the
picture of what a suburb is. But
the
go ahead.
well, it's not really excuse me, it's not really an affordability issue, because the more housing there is, the cheaper the housing ends up being. That's law of supply and demand. There's more supply than demand, then the price tends to drop to be able to match that demand, that diminished demand. By building more housing and even condensing the suburbs even more than they currently, like, because they're not condensed at all. If we condense it like the Netherlands does, then we actually would see more affordable housing. Just we need to build more housing.
Well, so that's not what I see happening though. So here's the issue, right? You can look at like average mortgage payments, right? That people are paying for these suburban houses, and they're, depending on your cost of living, $1,500 to $2,100, right? That's what inner city rents are approaching in a lot of high cost of living areas. So the issue is that it's cheaper in a lot of cases to, especially in terms of square footage, to mortgage a house, and it's a lot more financially secure to mortgage a house. It's an investment, versus renting an apartment. And this touches on the issue of affordability here. Obviously, people want land and they want the home and blah 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 blah. But the bigger problem is that it's more affordable foot by foot to live in a house in a suburb than it is to live in an inner city environment. And the reason why is because these big, apartment developments, they cost a lot of money to erect, right? The land is high cost, the buildings are high cost, running utilities are high cost. The issues of electrical are high cost, internet is high cost, because all these things have to navigate a complex urban area to install these utilities, to build these buildings. They have to be tall, they have to meet certain very, specific building standards. There's a lot of things that go into driving up these items that ultimately contribute to the high rents that we see today, that don't play into a suburban house that you can buy and build and own yourself. So the issue is affordability to a degree. And so you can start building up these suburban areas, you can urbanize them, but you're going to run into the same issue you have in inner cities today, where rent is unaffordable, because you're ultimately creating the same situation. You're increasing density, which requires buildings that have more structural engineers designing them, that have more structural elements that cost more, that have more fire codes that go into them, more electrical support,
Sure.
more water support, all of those things. You're raising land values that cause the cost of these developments to skyrocket. So you're going to encounter these same high
So
rent costs. When if you go just outside of outside of these urbanized suburb areas, you can buy cheap farmland and build your own house for that $1,700 a month mortgage. So
so
people are always going to spread out because it's economically the reasonable thing to do.
so what I'm hearing is mostly the problem is property tax and uh my fucking brain just shut off for a second. Yeah, property tax is like one of the main ones, and regulation, that's the other one. So reducing regulation and getting rid of property tax altogether will thus make land more affordable, to thus then allow people to build housing. Of course, keep the safety regulations, all that stuff. But and when it comes to more urbanized suburbs, I'm like I said, I'm more so referring to the Netherlands model, in which instead of a like say 0.25 acres or whatever it is, right, front backyard,
Mhm.
instead you have two buildings, just one right on top of the other, just like a townhouse or something like that, which you can see all over the place, where it is just two buildings, one on top of the other, two different living spaces within the same area of land. And
I
this,
think it still comes down to the same issue, though. You're increasing the density, which is going to increase the land costs, so
not
it's just going to
no,
push
hold on,
people
not
to where
necessarily.
costs are lower.
That's the problem. That's property tax, though, and I think we should abolish property tax, which then gets rid of that problem altogether of more density, thus resulting in higher prices, right?
Well, it's partially supply and demand, though, isn't it? I mean, if
Well,
you're trying to put
if
more
there's,
people in a smaller area,
well,
the
yeah, there,
demand is going to be greater, which drives up this.
not necessarily, no.
Go ahead.
Well, not necessarily, because the demand also reflects on what is available there, right? So you could have like a million people within like a tiny area, but if there's nothing there, there is no demand for that place, right? So like if you in the middle of Sahara Desert, if I put in like 2 to 3 million different homes, whether it be like super sprawled
Mhm.
out or super dense, there is no there's no demand to live in the middle of Sahara because there's nothing there. It's not livable. So it doesn't necessarily matter the density of the housing, but rather how much there is to do there. Like if there's museums, if there's parks, if there's all this other stuff going on, even like nearby states. So like where I live 2 hours towards just about everything I could want. I'm at least like 4 hours from like a nearby beach. I'm 2 hours from where I ski, which is fairly affordable. So like I have there's a
Mhm.
demand in which case of where I live because of how close other things are. Um, but if it wasn't for that, then I would have no demands to live here, and I would rather live somewhere else.
Sure, but I think so. So in your ideal, where you have this, mixed zoned area,
Hmm.
um, where everything is within walking distance, wouldn't that increase demand and
It
therefore
could
drive
increase,
up
sure,
price?
it could increase some demand, but if you have enough housing to subvert that extra demand you might get, so like if 100 people want to live in an area that's like, let's say that's really high demand, 100 people wanting to live in a specific area, then you could build like 300 houses with the necessary requirements to then have much higher supply for that demand.
Sure, but
But
it's still
deregulation,
gonna
but I think,
cost.
sure, but I think it's all comes down to deregulation, right? We're both libertarian in that sense that we want to deregulate things, um, not necessarily to the bare minimum, but at least as much as we think is necessary. Whereas I would probably say like definitely keep regulations in terms of like safety. So like of course when it comes to construction, you don't want to like build out of like I don't necessarily remember the name for the like the softest wood, but you don't want to build a house out of like the softest wood possible, but you also don't want to build the
Right,
houses
right.
out of the hardest wood possible. You just want it like just like right at that cusp, if not just a little bit more to meet any extra stress that could involve on climate. Um, and then of course safety regulation for the um, the construction workers themselves. Of course, you want to keep that,
Mhm.
but overall, you need to have more. Like you need to we need to deregulate more than what definitely what we currently have, because like I said, parking lot size is fucking intense. There's height regulations, which I think is absolutely fucking insane. Um, so I
Mhm.
this is all stuff that we could easily fix within our current ecosystem, but we either choose not to, or there's just not enough cultural push for that change, to allow for that change.
Okay, that's fair enough. That's fair enough. I do see where you're coming from with that.
Someone in chat said they
Mm,
geolocated my location from the reflection from my PS5.
Oh, oh, he's extorting you. That's terrible.
He said $5 and I won't tell anyone. I'm broke. I quit. I quit my job for this. So
Ah, you gotta track him down, show him who's boss. I
show me.
mean,
Yeah.
are you gonna let him walk all over you
I,
like this? This is
I mean, I'm not giving him the money because I don't have $5.
oh,
Yeah.
I don't know. It seems like he's taking advantage of you. I wouldn't stand for that. I'd dox him.
You dox him. I'll
Are
get.
we allowed to say that word?
Yes, I can give. I'll give his information to the autistic fuckers that Delta knows.
Right,
Just
right.
just just his tag on
They
Twitch.
they they are.
Just his tag on Twitch, and
That's
they
enough.
could geolocate everything about him just from that one thing.
No, unironically, yeah. They're interesting people. We have a couple of mutual friends like that who are yeah.
Yeah.
I remember when Microsoft Flight Simulator was releasing, they got really excited because they thought that it would change the game for geolocating because they have the photo or they have the spatially realistic
Hmm.
and accurate ground mapping, right, for
Yeah.
elevation and everything. So they're like, oh my gosh, this is going to make it so much easier to find where this guy is in this picture because I can literally
You can
like
like be right
physically
there.
find the
Yeah.
hill. Right, right. Um, they were disappointed when it released. They stuck with Google Earth, but
Yeah. Especially with Street View, we can literally just like pop down on like any
mhm.
street location and just be right there.
Well, half the crap that they're looking at is in the middle of Ukraine or something. All gray, totally destroyed as of the last two
Yeah.
years. So it's incredible what they can pull off. But
Yeah.
I guess that's skill and determination.
Yeah. And but for reals, I hope you're enjoying the conversation. It's just the one guy. He's not the Nazi this time. It's actually someone different. Crazy enough, I don't know where the Nazi went.
Okay. Yeah, that's unfortunate.
Yeah,
Didn't he lecture us? He's not technically a Nazi.
he said he was a fascist, which is
Ah, right, right,
it
right.
is
Okay.
different, but we're saying it for the meme. He said he's enjoying it.
Yeah, that's fair.
Is there anything you want to add to this? He said we're lizards. Is there anything you want to add to this? Feel free. I try to relay the chat because no one else watches it but me because I manage this entire fucking thing. The Twitch and the YouTube.
Yeah, you're a little slave boy.
I am the slave boy.
A little slave boy.
I'm the manager and the head of this entire operation. If I go down, this entire thing goes down. He says houses should be rural,
Yep.
not more city. No, we definitely need more urbanization. Oh, my dad's calling. Hold on.
Oh, fancy. I guess it's just me. How are you doing this evening? You sexy motherfuckers. I should just start breathing into my microphone. That seems like a good choice. Let me turn down the noise floor here, and then we can start with my deep breathing session. Uh-oh, Discord broke. Bear with me. Huh. Which button? Oh, this button. Sensual. Inspiring. Stimulating. I don't think he can hear me. I doubt he can hear me. This is very sad. Oh, so sad. So sad. I should fix my microphone here. So I guess while Sonic is away, we're probably sponsored by Bond's undercarriage powder. Helps with that terrible jock itch. We all know you guys have it. Major thanks to our other sponsor, Trojan Condoms, for helping us engage in safe, happy, fun activities on and off stream. Um, if you want the other stream that includes the Trojan condoms, head over to our OnlyFans, Sonic2689 backslash OnlyFans.com. Uh, only $5 a month. I feel like we need waiting music. That seems like a reasonable thing to have. That is probably copywritten. I shouldn't do that. Well, while we're waiting, I think I should do some reading for the group. Let's see. Oh, this poor book. Sort of smashed up. What to read? We have Elementary Surveying, ninth edition. Let's see, what section do we want to start with? How about mapping, chapter 17, if I can find it. Bear with me. Doing my best for you guys. That's area. Wrong chapter. Oh, here we go, chapter 17. Geez, these chapters are short. All right. A reading from Elementary Surveying, ninth edition, by Paul R. Wolfe and Russell C. Brinker. 17. Mapping. 17-1. Introduction. Maps are visual expressions of portions of the Earth's surface. Features are depicted on them using various combinations of points, lines, and standard symbols. Maps have traditionally been produced in graphic or hard copy form, that is, printed on paper or mylar. Recently, however, the production in digital or soft copy form has been increasing. Maps in digital form are stored in a computer or on a disk, can be
Hey,
viewed on a screen, and if desired, can be printed in hard copy form. Throughout the ages, maps have had a profound impact on human activities, and today the demand for them is perhaps greater than ever.
the fuck were you talking?
Are you back?
Yeah, I'm back. Sorry, my dad called.
Um,
It was about some my birthday stuff tomorrow. Tomorrow's my birthday, so yay.
yeah, we could read your lips. We know all about the preparation H.
Yeah, like what?
Um, how much you go through. I don't think that's healthy. Hey, you might want to get that checked out there, bud. All right. Well, I suppose this concludes the reading from Chapter 17, Mapping of Wolf's
Are you
Elementary
were you
Surveying,
actually
ninth
fucking
edition.
reading it? Were you actually reading a book?
Yeah,
Fucking hell, you had
I
nothing.
don't know.
You had nothing just monologue about or just ramble? Because I ramble all the fucking time, even just to
I
myself.
rambled to myself, but that's a personal experience. I mean,
Oh,
I don't
I'll
know.
televise that shit. If you had to go out for some reason, I would literally just start like rambling, talking to myself, having debates with myself, or doing whatever the fuck I want to myself.
That's fair, I suppose. I don't know. I don't know. I figured the audience would appreciate
Oh, don't worry.
Wolf's
We
chapter
went from
17
three
mapping.
viewers before the call to one me after the call. Once it started, we lost two
Oh,
viewers
that's
because of the
unfortunate.
call. No, the gay's still here. Gay Wood Tang. Gay Wu Tang.
Gay
Like
Wu Tang.
he's the guy that's been here since the beginning of the podcast, actually.
Interesting.
Yeah.
How's gay Wu-Tang doing?
I don't know. You should join the Discord. He said he's doing quite fine. Are you a Republican? Just curious. Because you want more rural instead of urban, so I'm assuming you're probably more Republican. Just based off of that. But he said he's doing good.
That's good.
Yeah. Anyways, before the call, he had said that we need housing to be more rural instead of urban, which I heavily disagree with, of course, as we were talking about the whole time. I'm not quite sure where you stand on this.
I don't know. Let me know if he responds.
He said he's a rural demonic, trad fascist, trot femme.
You're gonna have to decompose those words for me.
I will copy and paste what the fuck he just said. He said, nah, I'm a, and then this is what he put.
Interesting.
I'm assuming you mean demoing, as in like you like demolition. I don't know. And then yes, we run a political podcast. We have one more host, but he couldn't make it today. He has to reschedule for the next 2 months, or at least the next month or so, for Tuesdays and Thursdays. So McGuire may not be here the entire time, but I probably will. I have nothing else in my life going on because I am a fucking loser. Alfred Demoning.
Don't put yourself down.
I don't know Alfred, no. Mr. Demoning. I need to Google that.
Alfred, let me Google it.
Yeah. Oh god, my fuck.
Yeah.
Let me turn on the brightness.
This came up for me. So that's something.
Hold on, I gotta turn on the brightness because fucking hell. Cancel that. Let's see. Who the fuck are you? Oh, what the fuck is that?
I genuinely don't know.
There isn't a lot of information available in English about a fictional character named Alfred Demoning. Demonig, I don't know. From the movie titled Demonic, 2021. So this is a recent movie. Is this who the fuck you're talking about? A fictional character?
Now I'm curious.
This is what my little sidebar put as I've explained what the fuck it is before. He's a Prussian philosopher. Okay. Prussian philosopher. Let's see. He's not a well-known figure in philosophy or intellectual history based on the provided search results. However, I can inform you about someone who is actually popular, Nietzsche. Nietzsche and Schopenhauer. I can't pronounce anything. Too influential. Let's see. Is it maybe related to Alfred? The internet. Let's see. He was a teacher and a mentor. Nietzsche excited him. The internet doesn't even know who the fuck you're talking about. There's an Arthur guy, but there's not a. There's this guy, Alfred Schopenhauer. Not the same guy though. German philosopher.
Oh, this is interesting. I just keep getting furry shit.
Hermann Göring very famously dedicated a chapel in France to him after the invasion. This has to be a fucking like meme, right? Because this is not a person. The internet doesn't even know who the.
This is weird.
I feel like it's one of those like gotcha things, like a D's nuts thing. or fucking I don't know. Yes, I've heard of Nietzsche. I've heard of him. I've not read him, but I know of him at least. Frederick. Khan. I know Khan. Yeah, I know of him at least. I You keep saying, see,
This is weird.
how do you not know Alfred? I have because Hunt, the internet doesn't even know who the fuck this is. I can show you my screen. There is nothing on this fucker.
Is he just going on about somebody who doesn't exist?
I don't know. There's an Alfred Scholler from 20th century Munich, Germany. He was an esotericist. Ludwig Klages. He was a philosopher. Karl Wolfskeil. He was a poet. Ludwig Derleth, Bohemian Countess, whatever. He was an anti-fascist. I don't like those. Oh. Are you a fascist?
So is this just some
Are you
weird Nazi?
are you another fascist? Or are you a Nazi? Because those are two different things. He may just be another fucking Nazi fascist type. Did we just attract those? He's a first time chatter. It's not the same guy.
Apparently.
I don't think it's the same guy. Because Twitch literally said first time chatter. That Yeah, I told you already. Can you decode these words, please? I know traditional fascist. What's a tot femme? Or a tote femme? Also, hold on. I'll also look up fucking, let's see. Totalitarian feminist. Okay.
Okay, this has to be a name.
A traditional fascist, totalitarian feminist. And then whoever the fuck Demonig is. Demonig twin turn. The internet, I don't know what to tell you. No one knows who the fuck this guy is. Let's see. Dominic Prussia. Let's see. I'll even look up philosopher. There's still nothing. I still can't find anything on this guy. Can you, like, I don't know, send a fucking link or something? Anything on this fucker? Because I am looking it up. We both looked it up. Absolutely not. Do your own homework. How can I do homework on a guy that doesn't exist on the internet?
It's just silly.
He exists in my heart. Okay. So we'll just go with for now in mine too. Alright. Well, we'll just go with traditional fascist, totalitarian feminist with Demonig, who was as I think he said, an anti-fascist. He's already in the Discord. Oh no.
Sure, it is strange. I wonder who that is.
Oh no. This is fucking wild.
Oh, I sure do wonder. That's weird. Out of all people on the server, who could it be?
Who could it be? It's Delta. What if it was fucking Delta? It's not self-ownership. Do you actually have an idea who it is?
I might. I don't know. It could be in the back of my mind.
Who do you think? It's not self-ownership. It's not Jewish, is it? Is it fucking Jewish? It's not Jewish. Can't be.
No.
Jewish is
I wonder
a
how Juice is
Jewish.
doing.
Jewish is awesome, and he's also a socialist type.
Yeah, so this wouldn't be him at
Although
all.
he does call himself a fascist sometimes, so I wouldn't be surprised. I would not be
Oh,
surprised.
that's interesting.
You know me fairly well. Better not be fucking Jewish. It better. It's not Maddie. I can guarantee it's not Maddie.
Yeah. I mean,
Morgs.
yeah.
There's
Um,
Morgs. Um, it's not Morgs. I don't think it's definitely not Delta. The only person. Let's see. Who have you not accused of being me yet? It's not Al. It's not JFK. It's not Pingu. It's not. I don't know who the fuck Sword. Is it the Sword? I've not. Who the fuck is this guy?
who's Sword?
Who the fuck is Sword?
Sword?
Probably change his name from
That's
something else.
oh. That's probably self-ownership salt. I mean, let's be
He's from the
realistic.
right side. It's not Egg. It's not.
Hmm.
I don't know.
I haven't heard from Egg in a long time.
I don't know. Anyways, is there anything else? We have hit past the hour mark. We can continue. Normally this is when Delta gives up and moves on.
Yeah,
But
throws up his hands
there's one
dramatically.
person you have not accused. I'm pretty sure I've said everyone. It's not. There's Crack Beaver. The only people online right now are Agent S, Crack Beaver, and Pilko Mankin. But I'm gonna be honest. I barely know who these guys are. I've never. Who the fuck's Agent S?
Yeah, half of them are from like Secret Scheme, I think.
I don't know. I think this guy's fucking trolling. I don't know who the fuck this guy is because I've said every other name. Um. Anyways, is there anything else you want to talk about?
Um, I don't know. Your call. I mean, I don't know. I think we had a good conversation about the urban planning. I think that was interesting. It's not something they talk about very often, so
Sure. I
I
mean,
did enjoy that.
so we've had what 2 weeks now where we've talked about infrastructure.
Yeah. But the last one, I don't actually remember what the last one was about. We mentioned water, but that was like
Yeah. Well, we were more so talking
I don't know.
about
I'm drawing a blank.
public and private, like the sectors and how government functions within those sectors and stuff. Right? Does that ring a bell?
Hmm. That's true. Yeah. That I think that yeah.
In which we, for the most part, agreed, and then Delta, of course, disagreed entirely. Naturally,
In true Delta fashion.
in true Delta fashion, indeed. He said, "How's McGuire doing?"
I'm why does he care?
Why does he care? I don't know. He's just asking. Uh, maybe it might be smart for y'all to have like a chat. He said he's giving you a hint, silly goose. Is it someone you know?
Um, I
Sonic.
I
It's giving me a hint.
possibly.
Oh, is it you?
Yeah, it took you a little while there.
What the fuck? Why? I didn't think you were like the last person I would have thought because you're here talking to me.
I gotta make use of those two monitors.
I fucking hell. I might be getting a third monitor for my birthday. That's gonna be fucking fun. Um,
Oh, there we go.
with
There we
no
go.
space on my fucking desk to put it. So
Duct tape it to the wall.
duct tape it to the wall. No, I'm probably gonna get like a little thing, like a bar on the back. Um,
Oh yeah.
so I can like mount it. Not on the wall, but on my desk itself. Um, or until I can get that attachment for now, I'll have like my tiny baby monitor here, my main monitor in the middle, of course. My camera's on my baby monitor. So this, and then I'll probably have it on this side for now. A bar like a pole, you're going to be a pole dancing. I do love pole dancing. Very good core workout.
Yeah, I think you would know.
I was even gonna fucking say, like, right before I fucking you I guess fucking said that, I was saying like it'd probably be a good idea to have, like, for you and Delta to have another chat, like either have another monitor or have something going on so y'all can read the chat like me, so y'all can interact without me having to read it or type it in or something.
Well,
But
believe it or not, already there.
you were already there. Yeah.
I should edit my my profile name now that the joke's gone.
Yeah, I from the very beginning, I never would have fucking thought. So you were trolling and memeing
That's what makes it.
you were memeing the whole time.
Yeah, gotta make the most of it.
Fuck you. Because I was also typing in the chat. So we were just talking to each other and typing to each other at the same fucking time.
I noticed.
Fucking hell. We should do this to Delta. He doesn't know. He doesn't watch.
Actually, yeah.
He never fucking
That's
rewatches our shit, and he would never watch this one. I can fucking guarantee you that. Not long enough for him to fucking
No,
understand
he'll
this.
he'll make it 5 minutes in before sending us an angry message about why towns should be abolished.
He's gonna be the fucking first. Him and his fucking class of like 2-year-olds are gonna be in. They're gonna watch the fucking podcast on YouTube, and then they're all gonna make mean comments. I mean, all right, for extra credit, if y'all can make one mean comment or like say why what they said is wrong, then I'll give you like 5 or 10 points extra credit. We're gonna get like a fucking like
part of the mandatory Delta indoctrination.
I know, fucking right. We're gonna get 20 comments on our fucking on the YouTube video off of this, the VOD, and it's just gonna be Delta and his fucking 20 students all like downvoting the video and shit.
Yep. Hey, you know, they say any attention is good attention, so.
Yeah. Also, if me, and Delta all have this like Discord open all at the same, or the Twitch open all at the same time, that just bumps our viewers up. That it goes from 2 to 3. It would be a net benefit, yes. Although we apparently can't do it.
And here I am asking.
Yeah, although we can't do it till June anyways, because he can't fucking be here unless it's on Mondays, Wednesdays. We normally have it, so it'll be Tuesdays, Thursdays, the days that you can't fucking be here. So I'll be the middleman doing fucking everything every day at 8 o'clock.
I should be able to. No, I can make it. It's just to have meetings occasionally, so I'll pop in when I can. You don't have to worry about that. I'll be pretty all right.
So you're gonna be in the middle of your meeting and be like, okay, hold on, I gotta text something on my game Wu-Tang fucking my Twitch and be like, hold on, they said something wrong. I gotta fucking fix it now. Let me just type in this 20 paragraph essay.
Don't even listen. I won't even listen. I'll just randomly heckle.
I'll just copy and paste and be like, all right, you know, fuck this. Copy, put in the fucking chat like I did earlier, paste that shit. All right, Delta, just fucking read it.
Right. Delta would take it super seriously, and it's just memeing over and over and over again.
God, why did you do this? Why did you do this to me, of all people? I thought we had something special.
I saw an opportunity and I seized it.
I thought we had something special.
You know, I carpe diem and all that, right?
Carpe fucking diem.
Had to take advantage. Right.
All right. Well, I've been playing Dark Souls 3. Amazing game. I fucking love it.
Oh, exciting.
I beat it. I think it was 2 days ago. I beat it. And I've been playing. I have this goal. It's really fucking stupid, but it's possible. It's going to take really fucking time consuming and probably take me a year to do. I want to get every achievement, trophy, whatever, for every FromSoft game. Do you know?
Okay,
Do you
there we go.
do you
I
know?
mean, that's gonna be a
Do you know?
pain in the
Do you
ass,
know
but
FromSoft?
isn't it just the entire Dark Souls series, which is
Dark Souls 1, 2, and 3,
notoriously difficult?
Bloodborne,
Uh-huh.
Demon Souls. I
Oh,
have
okay.
I have the remake for PS5, Elden Ring, plus its DLCs for each of these games. Demon Souls didn't have DLC, but Dark Souls 1, 2, and 3 did, as well as Bloodborne, and Elden Ring is now getting DLC with
Oh, fantastic.
its Eld tree. And it's all gonna have achievements for each of these things. So I'm gonna be doing all of the achievements and trophies in order because I play on my PS5, my little guy here.
There we go.
So
That that is a definite time commitment. I mean,
yep, and
I haven't personally played any of the Souls franchise, but
uh,
I've heard stories.
well, I've already done this for Dark Souls 2. I did this back in like October, November, something like that, if not like January of this year. I got
Okay.
platinum, which is for my PlayStation, every a trophy, whatever, for Dark Souls 2. So that game is already done for scholars. Um,
There you go.
I am now in the process. I have over half of the achievements, trophies, whatever, for Dark Souls 3. However, I have to play the game 3 times to get all the trophies. And I can't do like
Oh
3
boy.
different ones. I have to do New Game plus plus. So I have to play through the same character with I'll keep all my items and everything, but the enemies are of course harder, more health. I'll need more levels to do it. And this is just to get all the rings. Like if it
Oh boy. Okay.
there's 3 achievements for the endings, but I could do those endings on different characters. But there's no point in doing it with different characters if I already need to play New Game Plus Plus and to get all the rings, as well as the pyromancies and whatever,
Hmm.
and all this other shit. Um, and then I have to do the same thing, probably New Game Plus or even Plus Plus again for Dark Souls 1. And for Dark Souls 2, I had to do that same thing. I had to do New Game Plus Plus. So I had to play the game 3 times for Dark Souls 2. I had to play the game 3 times for Dark Souls 3. And I might have to play at least once, like twice to 3 times for Dark Souls 1. And I
So how long is like a single playthrough?
depends on how good you are. For me,
Okay.
playing it off and on, it took me um actually so there's an in-game for Dark Souls for every Dark Souls, there's an in-game timer for the character you play.
Mhm.
Um Currently, I am finishing up the Ring City DLC for Dark Souls 3, which is the
Okay.
second DLC they released, and is actually the hardest DLC they have. And I only need to play through it once, and then I don't have to touch it again. But my character is currently sitting at about 26 hours, and I'm still on my first
Okay. So you're
and I'm on my first playthrough of the fucking character with the character. But the second
all right.
but the second and third playthroughs are going to be less time because I'll be better at the game. I'll know the maps better. The most time consuming thing isn't the game because I've already beat it. I beat the last boss and everything. I got one of the endings. I still need 2 other endings. But the most time consuming isn't the
All right.
actual playing the game and beating it. It's going through to find all the items, going through to find all
Mhm.
of the NPCs to do their quest lines. This is the most time consuming thing to do, and I still have to do that stuff to get all the achievements.
So do you do it like legitimately, or are you using guides and stuff?
The first time around, when it came to the playing the actual game itself and beating it to completion, I did not use any guides. For the DLCs, I have been
Okay.
using guides just to help get the items and whatever else. But because my first
Mhm.
playthrough, I didn't use a guide, I missed so many of the like quest lines that I have to now play them and go through them on my second and third playthroughs instead of for my third playthrough just playing through the game and collecting the unnecessary items I need. Now I actually have to go back and
Right. Right.
find these NPCs, find where they are, talk to them, exhaust their dialogue, um, and then figure out where the fuck they are after that and do the exact same thing over and over. at least 5 times for, at minimum 3 to 4 times, at maximum 7 to 8 times for certain
Oh
NPCs.
boy. So you're making a major commitment.
Yeah.
I see. Okay.
And this is just for, this is the third
I
game.
respect it.
Yeah. And I still
Okay.
need to do this for the first game. I still need to do this for their Dark Soul, or for the Demon Souls. I still need to do this for Elden
Mhm.
Ring. I still need to do this for Bloodborne. So there's and these are games I haven't touched. I've only played Dark Souls 2 and 3. To like properly,
Oh
like
boy.
I played Bloodborne and Dark Souls 1 a little bit, but I not enough that I know them. Like, I think for Dark Souls 1, I've gotten past Taurus Demon. That's the furthest I've gotten in Dark Souls 1 before I put it down. And for all these times,
Okay.
I've been restarting from the beginning and playing it through from a fresh character. So for Dark Souls 3, I could have finished this character like a couple days, like last week, kind of thing. But I played from a fresh character,
Mhm.
so I had to do the same stuff because, and actually, some of the stuff I actually found a lot easier because, like, I played through not a significant amount of the game, but enough of the game to make me happy with myself without dying. I got all
Mhm.
the way. I got past Rotted Greatwood, which is like the third or fourth boss of the game, without dying.
Okay.
Um,
Well, that's kind of fantastic. Good
it's
job.
good for me. But I think one of the biggest things that I
Well,
loved, that I did, I beat Dancer, no help. Dancer is considered, to me at least to the community in general, as one of, not necessarily the hardest, but definitely one of the hardest bosses within Dark Souls 3. And I beat it without dying. I did take damage, so I didn't do it damageless, but I did
mhm.
do it without dying, and I was happy with that. And then I beat Pontiff Sullivan. You don't know who any of the fuck these guys are. You should watch a Dark Souls speedrun or something. It's fun. You should play Dark Souls 3. Um, I recommend all of
Fair enough. Fair
I
enough. Okay.
recommend all the Souls games, of course. But
I've heard stories. It's been on my
yeah,
mind.
but
But you keep going.
Dark Souls 3 is definitely the most accessible for everybody. It is by far the easiest of the Souls. Honestly, it's like, it's not even trilogy anymore. It's the Dark Souls trilogy, but there's like 6 games in the series now, and the Soulsborne series, with now including Elden Ring.
Mhm. Well, there we go. I'll throw that on my
Yeah,
wish list. Here's a
yeah, you should. But
friendly little reminder.
don't play with keyboard. If you're gonna buy it off of Steam, don't use keyboard. Get a fucking controller.
Oh, come on.
No,
Come on.
no, I'm serious.
Keyboard is where it's at.
Not for
Oh,
this.
okay, fine,
Not for
fine.
Dark
I
Souls.
do have a old controller somewhere, so I'll pull it out.
I play
It really makes that much of a difference?
with my, yes, because the way you roll in the game, like the directions that you go, right? I have the awesome Spider-Man controller, but like with keyboard, you only have the 4 directions, and technically 8 if you press 2 at the same time, but that's it.
Okay, yeah.
I have
That's true.
omnidirectional like control with this, and rolling and everything else with this. Everything is, for most games, I will say, keyboard and mouse, definitely like FPS games, stuff like that. Mouse and keyboard are exceptional and almost necessary for a lot of games. For Dark Souls, for any Soulsborne game, any FromSoft game in general, you're going to use a controller. Yeah,
Mhm.
there's no
Okay.
getting away from that. It is the superior method because
That's
you don't need the fast action mouse movement for the camera. You don't.
mhm.
You don't need that. The what you get off a
Okay, fair
controller
enough.
is superior.
I know I have a few hours on Honkai. I don't like to admit it, but um, that's infinitely better with a controller
Oh
too.
yeah.
So I guess I know what you're talking
I
about.
also forgot a game, Sekiro. There's there's 5 games. Like there's like 4 games I'm missing probably. Demon Souls, Dark Souls 1, Elden Ring, and Sekiro.
Okay.
And like I said, the thing I'm doing with Dark Souls 3, I probably have to do with all 4 of these games, and it's taken me at least a week uh, of me
Oh
playing
boy.
off and on um, to get this far, and I still need to do 2 more run throughs with items and quests and everything in mind. Um,
Mhm.
so that's gonna suck. It'll take me less time to beat the bosses though, because I'll know them pretty well. Um, I'm glad I did Dark Souls 2. I love Dark Souls 2, but definitely Dark
Yeah, that
for
that
any
sounds rough.
for everyone anyone playing Dark Souls like or wanting to get in Dark Souls, start with Dark Souls 3. It is the most accessible. Unless you want to Elden Ring is definitely a really good option though. It is definitely it's phenomenal. I'd even say better than fantastic. Absolutely perfect game. There's a reason why it won the Game Awards because it was an absolutely brilliant game. It's absolutely phenomenal. Um,
Mhm.
Pretty accessible, but for
Okay.
Soulsborne specifically, uh, it's not quite the same. It has overall the same mechanics of running, rolling, attacking, etc. But for Soulsborne specifically, Dark Souls 3, um, that's definitely a good starting place to get into. And then probably
Okay. Well, there you go.
And then Elden Ring after that. Bloodborne, that one's gonna be harder. If you don't have a PlayStation, it is impossible to get a hold of.
Interesting. Yeah, I think I've heard about that. Yeah.
It is a PS4 exclusive.
Yeah, I think I've seen some angry posts on Reddit before.
Yeah.
That does jog my memory.
Yeah. If you're gonna do Demon Souls, there's also Demon Souls is also completely inaccessible if you don't have a PS3 or a PS5 because PS4 isn't backwards compatible, and the remake is
Oh
PS5
boy.
exclusive, and the original Demon Souls, which is even less accessible than the remake, if you can even find one, is a PS3 exclusive because it's a Sony title with made by FromSoft, in which then afterwards they did their own thing and created Dark Souls, which is now on everything. And then Bloodborne was now also a Sony thing made by FromSoft, so now that's purely Sony. And then they came back with Elden Ring after Dark Souls 3. So,
Gotcha. Interesting.
mhm.
It's always I like hearing other games lore.
Oh,
I don't get into
the
to
lore?
game lore or not lore, but like the development and all
Yeah.
of that. There's so much that goes into all of that,
Oh,
and it's always interesting
don't
hearing.
get started on Dark Souls lore. It is bad shit fucking insane.
Yeah,
It
yeah, misspoke there. That's wrong phrasing.
when it comes to lore for any video game or any sort of media in general, Dark Souls I would say is either the top spot or within the top 3 in terms of the amount of detail it gives and like the expansiveness of the lore.
Hmm. No, that's fair. That's fair.
I
I
would
think
say maybe
I've
number 1, if it weren't for Disney, number 1 would have been Star Wars. Because even George
yeah.
Lucas literally gave the most minor characters entire stories and backstories and everything. Like, I remember hearing a story. It was one of the Cantina, like Cantina instrument, like players or whatever. You know what I'm talking
Mhm.
about?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
those fuckers. Literally gave every single one of those characters different backstories on how they got to that specific situation in for A New Hope.
It's taking pride in your craft. You got to respect it.
Yeah, I would if it weren't for Disney, because Disney retconned all of that, so now it's just part of Legends.
Mhm.
If it weren't for Disney, that would be number 1. Number 2 would have been Dark Souls probably, if not something else that I can't think of. Um, but yeah, no, Dark Souls. If you want to get into lore, it is crazy. There's so much there.
That's fair. I think that is something I'll throw on my to-do list. I know the only game I've ever really dived into lore-wise is Fallout, and that's obviously kind of a trip in and of itself. But
Yeah, but there's really not when it comes to Fallout. There's really not too much. Like interesting things like how they got to the
Mhm.
world being nuked to hell, and what nations are there, like
Yeah.
who survived, did every nation get nuked, and they answered these couple of like questions. But once you get into after the nukes drop, there's not too much like external lore. It's solely whatever the game provides. So like when it comes to Fallout 3,
Mhm.
it doesn't provide lore necessarily for what happens in, well, New Vegas, right? Or
Right.
Canada, Mexico. It doesn't really provide this other information. It only really focuses on Washington D.C. and that general area. And then New Vegas did the same thing. It only really focused on the Nevada region, the Nevada area, and maybe a couple
Mhm.
very minor surrounding places like the NCR with. It did touch a little bit on the NCR with California, but it didn't go into what happened with these other places. Like what happened on the complete opposite side of the eastern seaboard, right? And then Fallout
Right. Right.
4 fucking did nothing. It only focused on Boston, and that's about it. And then Fallout 1 and
To its credit, it is fun. It was
no,
a
yeah,
fun
no.
game. I really enjoyed it.
I'm not saying it's not fun, but on a for a lore
Mhm.
perspective, Fallout lacks
Right.
so much. But with what it lacks, it allows for creativity within the community, the lore community specifically. Whereas Dark Souls, there is some of that creativity, but you lose some of it because it provides answers for almost everything, minus like what's going on with the first flame. Um,
Mhm.
but like Fallout, with its lack of lore specificity, it does allow for creativity and possibility. There was actually a tweet recently from one of the developers for Fallout 4, I think it was, and he currently still develops Fallout games in for Bethesda. I'm not sure if you saw it, but he posted that one of the characters, it was from the first game, was the main protagonist from the fourth game, but it wasn't a character within the wasteland. It was rather um, like a TV like thing going on where it showed like literally a
Weird.
war
Okay.
crime being committed, um, of like supposedly the character. It was supposed to be, I think, a pre-war like movie or TV show or some news broadcast or something that got played, and it was straight up the creator had said this is the guy who he shot in a, like a pedestrian, like a bystander, a person that wasn't a threat. It was tied up on the ground or whatever, and literally shot him. This is in the first game. He said that that person who shot that innocent person was a was the protagonist from the fourth game, whether it be male or female. And people got so fucking
Interesting.
upset with that he had to retcon it day one immediately, at least within the first 24 hours,
Right.
if not 48. It was completely retconned. He said, "No, no,
Oh, no kidding. Okay.
this is not serious. This is my headcanon and the Bethesda team's headcanon. But if Bethesda's the one that's creating Fallout, then whatever their headcanon is what's lore. That's what's going on with Disney right now. Whatever their headcanon is
Mhm.
that's what's in the lore."
No, it's your franchise. I mean, you define it. Oh,
Yeah.
that's incredible. I hadn't heard about that. No.
Yeah, that was
Um.
recent too. That was within the last
Weird.
48
Okay.
hours. Yeah. At least within
Yeah.
the last
Okay.
week.
Well, we got current events on this episode. There we go.
Yeah.
There we go.
There's our
Actually,
mandatory.
I might have.
You might have heard of it.
That might have came up. Yeah. I possibly.
It was on Twitter.
I might have seen the tweet on Reddit.
You might
I
have seen
might have
it,
seen it on Reddit.
but no,
Maybe.
I just think it's funny that we're going completely off of politics now. This is just media. We're going on to media in general.
Yeah.
But
Well,
like people need to own up.
that's on character.
People need to own up to
Mhm.
their stuff. Whether it be ideology, if we're going back to politics, people need to own up to their ideologies, own up to their ideas, and own up to their headcanon. Like if you believe something to be true, say it. Don't hide it.
Hmm. No, absolutely. I mean, being weak in that, it's just a bad look, you know.
It's a bad
It's
look
like,
for you, and
with
it's a
making.
bad look for your entire ideas and like your ideology in general. If you aren't even
Right, exactly.
if you can't even express your idea in a what's arguably a free system in the US, then what's the point of even having that idea?
Hmm. Nope, exactly. It's trying to appease. That's what it comes down to. You're trying to appease and sell to people, and so all you end up doing is you end up pissing off the people who you're trying to sell to, and then you end up pissing off the people who supported you initially, and it's just a mess. It's not worth it.
Yeah. Even if you
Never
don't
apologize. Never back down. Stay
even if
steadfast.
yeah, even if you don't have support, um
Hmm.
express. Like um even if you're a Nazi or a fascist or a communist or whatever, talk about your ideas. Let your
Right.
ideas be free. Um you will get opposition, sure, because they're not great ideas, but talk about them. If you don't talk about
Mhm.
them, you can't learn. And it's always good to learn.
No, absolutely.
Um
Um, totally agree here.
yeah, which is why you own up to your
Well,
ideas. You just need to open to your ideas.
hmm, nope, learn and grow. That's what it is to be a man.
Well,
To be man in general,
to
not
be person,
specifically a man. That's
to be
yeah.
a
There we go. That's
person, to be human
yep.
is to learn and
There we go.
grow and expand ideas and knowledge. These are great, fantastic things. Don't be a pussy.
Mhm.
That there we go. That's the theme of this of this episode. Don't be a fucking pussy.
There we go. There we go. Put it on the on our tombstones.
Put it on the
That's what
tombstone.
the podcast is all about.
Weren't
Yeah.
pussies.
To-
That'll be on our collective. Like we'll all be buried in the same casket. Our collective tombstone. Not pussies.
right. There we go. Not a coward.
Not cowards.
That's
We are all Spartacus.
here we go. Yeah. Waging a revolution from Twitch.
That's what Hassan has been trying to do apparently. At least
Yeah, well,
always been trying to do, but trying. But
that's his on for you.
yeah. Anyways,
Um,
anything else you want to add? Or we're
I
at
think
about an hour 40 now.
yeah, I think we covered quite a bit. Especially relative to our normal workload or however you want to phrase it. So
We spent
I
40
think I'm all right.
minutes. We spent 40 minutes, but we spent 40 minutes talking about Dark Souls and Fallout.
Yeah, which is fine. They're fun topics, so
Yeah, no.
I'm totally on board with
All
that.
right. What media you got? Because I'm pretty sure it's pretty obvious what my media is Dark Souls 3. Everyone should play it.
Absolutely.
What's your media?
Well, I think in recognition of our dramatic reading earlier, I have no choice but to go with Elementary Surveying, Ninth Edition by Paul R. Wolf and Russell C. Brinker.
Yeah.
Beautiful book, fantastic read, very enthralling.
Yeah. Also, everybody, there's 3 people. 2 of them are at least me and you. The third person might be Delta or whoever the fuck it is. Don't forget to follow. And also give us $1,000,000.
There we go.
All right.
Oh, I think that wraps it up.
Yeah.
Appreciate the chat